Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Heat Roundtable. I'm your host, Amir. You can find me on the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast. We got Martel. You can find him at the Miami Heat Zone podcast. And we have Trent. You can find him at the Miami Heat Network. And we have a special guest for you today joining the podcast. We have Chris. How's it going, Chris?
Appreciate you guys having me, man. I cover a lot of G League hoops and a lot of college basketball for ESPN, CBS Sports Network, and some other entities. And so I'm excited to kind of see how this summer league group comes together. I recognize a lot of those names, saw them at their previous stops, and in this era of Miami Heat basketball, you never know which one of those guys are going to be in the rotation come the regular season.
Yeah, we'll see. I was at the summer league in San Francisco, and we have some young folks that are in that pool of undrafteds, that looked pretty good, like Kashad Johnson, Zion, Poland looks pretty good, and there's a few others. So we'll see what happens. But Chris, we wanted you to hop on, talk a little bit about the Miami Heat's offseason thus far. It's been relatively quiet. We knew going into free agency we couldn't make a splash. We were a first apron team, so we had no money to get a PG, to get a DeMar, to get any of those folks. People also talk about sign and trade. As a penalty being a first apron team, you can't do a sign and trade. So we would have had to have dumped off Tyler, Terry, Duncan, whoever, if we were to get DeMar, even though we missed out on him. So there's not a lot of action going on. And, we went from being a team in the NBA finals to a team losing in the first round last season. And so some Heat fans think we have a bleak future, and some have an open-minded perspective and are actually happy that we have some other young guys now that we've added to this roster through the draft. So, Chris, just wanted to get your outlook. What are your thoughts on this Miami Heat's future? What direction do you think they should go, or what direction do you think they are going? It doesn't seem like we have one right now at this point.
Yeah, and that's the most frustrating part, right? Like the worst place, I've always said the worst place to be in professional sports is like mediocrity, right? Like just outside the lottery, or if you do get into the lottery, you don't really have much of a chance at a top 5 pick. And, this is kind of, and I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but I know everybody's been kind of upset at the way the offseason's unfolded. And it's just crazy how the NBA works. Like it's only been the offseason officially, like in terms of being able to sign people and trades going down for about a week now. But the NBA, I mean, you kind of get this stuff figured out. I mean, most rosters are set at this point of the offseason. So I think bringing Haywood back earlier today is a move that I support, even though we found out that nobody else was offering him anything close to what Miami gave him with that 2-year $11 million deal. So it doesn't feel like that weird buffer period in between D Wade leaving for the Bulls and us getting Jimmy in 2019. But it feels like there's a real chance that Butler's gone next summer. And from there, it's puzzling to know what the plan is. I don't know if they're just hoping to squeeze the best out of Jimmy in a contract year, which I bet you Jimmy's gonna play way more regular season games this year. I bet you his numbers are gonna be better. And if that happens, Miami's record's going to be better. People forget that Miami was only, a couple games out of being a top 3 seed in the East. Like, you think about some of those frustrating losses. I think about a loss to the Wizards that they had at home where they had like 2 or 3 good looks at the buzzer to try and win that game, among some others that don't come to mind right now. I am interested to see what a full season of Terry Rozier brings, and I think Miami is banking on that. But if Tyler Hero is unwilling to accept a 6-man role where he's been at his best in the NBA, then I don't think that this group of characters is going to find its way out of the play-in. Or if they do, they're going to be, right in the 6-5 area and not getting home court advantage, which, look, I mean, the bubble was legit. The run 2 years ago was legit. But to think that you can repeat stuff like that over and over again is just it's crazy. It's nuts. So I don't really know what direction Miami is headed in right now. But one thing I will say, as I've been, this feeling is not all that foreign, right? This is a familiar feeling. We're running it back again. How many off seasons have we had where we wanted to shake up and we wind up running it back, and then we've got to mentally get ourselves into a place where we can be a little optimistic. I think that optimism starts to kick in when the preseason starts. But I'll say this, Miami, there's no question Miami is the best in the NBA at developing talent. And it appears that they're going to run it back, and they're going to hope that guys develop. They're going to hope that guys are available, and maybe they'll luck into a 4 or 5 spot in the East. But that seems like the ceiling. And to me, in an era where Jimmy has done so much and Bam's getting better every year, it just seems like a disservice to the fan base and a disservice to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it feels difficult to even think that they would be 4 or the 5 seed, even if Jimmy plays, let's say, 70 games. Let's say Jimmy gets second or third All NBA. I think that's like what it's going to take, plus the health of Tyler Hero, plus Terry Rozier continuing to assimilate and help us run that offense and be that third or fourth scorer that we desperately need. It's still hard to see them even cracking the 4 and 5. Like, I feel like sixth is like the best because all these other teams in front of us have improved and continue to improve. Even the team in our division that won the division last year, right? This young Magic team even added a 2-time NBA champion, KCP. That's a more significant move than what we did with Alec Burks. So it's like, even in the best case scenario, Tyler plays more than 65 or 67 games for the first time in his career. Jimmy plays more than 65 in a Heat uniform and plays at an all NBA level. Like, yeah, maybe 5. I still don't see them even cracking the top 4, honestly. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to be realistic because like all the other teams in front of us made moves. So I don't know. It's just tough to see all these teams trying to improve. And I know we're trying. It's like, it's not like our front office has fumbled when it comes to asset management, but like we know they're trying. Trent, you mentioned it, right? Barry Jackson saying that we're trying to get DeMar. We're trying to get all these other guys. So I don't know, man. Trent, what do you feel about this offseason right now? It's going to be a lot more quiet now that we added Haywood Highsmith, and we have no money to add anybody, right? You told me about this earlier. Why? Because we don't want to be a second apron team. So what's your thoughts, Trent?
I mean, this is the roster we rolling with: Rozier, Tyler, Jimmy, Jovic, Bam, Burks, Duncan, Jaime, Highsmith, Ware, Rich, Love, Larson, and Bryant. I'm still confused about bringing back Thomas Bryant. Why the hell do we need 3 centers? We need a backup point guard because we don't even have that. I mean, Terry missed the whole postseason with a mysteriously neck injury, which I feel like I still don't know what the hell happened. I don't like that's just weird to me. And then we have Drew Smith. Like, what are we doing with Drew Smith on our roster? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this roster is garbage. And then for the offseason, this is nothing new, right? We went through this last year with Dame. And then this year for Donovan Mitchell, I think there really was no hype with it. Let's be honest. I think us fans just kept pushing the agenda. But deep down, I think we all knew Mitchell was staying with the Cavaliers. So that's kind of where we're at. And then like each rumor, oh, the Heat going to go after this player. They're not going after nobody. They have Tyler, Duncan, Jimmy, and Bam all on huge contracts. And I already knew it was over when you traded for Terry because after that, the whole new apron rules and stuff like that, you can't really do too much with it. So the teams that got better, if you notice, the Magic, they had money. 76ers, they had money. Those are the teams that are getting better. The Heat had no money, and we knew that. We was just trying to be a little bit... We was being delusional. We're going to get better. We're not going to get better. We're relying on Kel'el Weir, Jovic getting better, and Jaime getting a second-year leap, and a healthy Terry. That's what they're relying on. Maybe they trade Tyler mid-season. Maybe they don't. I'm not too sure. But this Miami Heat team is pathetic. Pat Riley's pathetic. It's over. Like it's really over. And the last thing I'll say is, right, talking about the Eastern Conference, Celtics brought all their players back and signed players to mega contract extensions. The Knicks, even if they don't win, they're trying. They brought back OG and traded for Mikal. The Bucks, no one's talking about them, but Dame and Giannis will be back next year. Cavaliers, the only team that didn't do too much. They got Donovan. Magic brought KCP. Pacers, they're just running it back. 76ers got better. Those are all the teams that are in front of us. You're telling me we're going to compete with them? I don't see it.
Pacers didn't have Mathurin either. Remember that?
And no one's talking about it. The former 8 overall pick in Walker. I'm telling you, he's going to play a role next year because they're trying to move him to the small forward position. So, like, bro, we're just relying on growth at this point. And the worst thing about it, Martel, one sec. Worst thing about it is that it's Jimmy's last year. I don't think you should rely on growth on Jimmy's last year. Like, you don't know what you need to make. Like, I get, we've been saying don't pay Jimmy. I get that. But if this is the way Jimmy's going to leave, this is pathetic. Like, this is the way that Jimmy's going to walk out Miami, because I think it's eventually going to happen. You're relying on being a top 6 seed. I don't see it happening. So, yeah.
But, Chris, do you think that this team should be focusing on going young? Only because it's kind of like what Trent said. If we're not going to trade Jimmy and then he just walks out the door for nothing, we're pretty much going young then, because we're gonna have to have that core of Bam, Tyler Hero, Jovic, Jaime, and Khalil Ware. So do you think that this Miami Heat organization should be looking to trade Jimmy just so that he doesn't walk out for nothing? Because clearly they're not quick to give him the money, and if they're not going to give him the money this season, why would they give him the money a year older? So do you think that this Miami Heat front office should be focusing on going young now that we have the pieces, instead of just trying to make a trade just to make a trade?
Yeah, it's hard to see a world where that would happen, just because this is a friend, and I know you're not talking about tanking necessarily, but if you were to go young and say maybe miss out on the playoffs and be a lottery team, I mean, look at the Hawks' fortune. I mean, they were in a play-in game against Chicago before Chicago played Miami. They get the number one pick. Number one pick was whatever this year. Number one pick. If you see what Cooper Flag is doing on the U.S. select team to those Olympians, man. I mean, you're looking at it. I mean, it's not like the Wemby type of hype, but this is like a clear cut number one pick. Like whoever gets number one is 100% taking Cooper Flag next year. If you're gonna pick a year to be bad, it's this year, not the following year, because you don't know what's coming that following draft. Bryce James, I mean, does he have a ceiling? I don't know. But in all seriousness, look, I mean, the Jimmy thing's going to be nostalgia this year, right? I mean, it's so wild to me. And I was at that what was it, game 4 against the Bucks last year? That was the craziest game I'd ever been a part of and seen. And it probably wouldn't have only been a little less crazy if I watched it on a screen. But we've seen Jimmy take this franchise to the finals twice, and we've seen him get to that last leg, needing 2 wins against the Lakers, 3 wins against the Nuggets to get it done. And he just doesn't have enough. I just don't see, even if you walk into some fairy tale scenario where everybody in the East gets hurt, like they did this year for the Celtics, I just don't see how by the time you are to get to a finals, Jimmy with this roster construction is going to have enough around him to drop 40-point triple doubles and win games. So to me, as much as I want to see Jimmy retire in a Heat uniform, and that's becoming less and less reality after, Pat's presser and kind of some of the stuff we've heard this offseason, Miami didn't want to pay him. It's too bad, man. I mean, it does kind of feel like Miami fumbled the Jimmy era. I don't want to call the Jimmy era unsuccessful, because making it to 2 finals as, an 8 seed and a 5 seed is remarkable and a testament to, the culture and Spo and all that. But, I wouldn't have been too up. Like, if Miami wasn't going to add to this, which they didn't, they got Haywood, they got Alec Burks on the minimum, and they drafted Khalil Ware, and I like Khalil Ware, but I don't expect him to be more of an impact than what we saw with Derek Lively in the Dallas Mavericks this last year. I would have been okay with Miami picking a direction, but like we said off the top here, the worst place to be in pro sports is to be kind of stuck in the middle. And that's frankly where Miami's at right now. So I would have liked to see this team go the younger route this year. But even with that cap space, and even, hey, it's been thrown around that maybe Jimmy gets moved at the deadline as an attractive expiring contract to a contender. I still don't know what you're in line to get back for that, and what the outlook would be next summer, because less and less players of impact are hitting free agency these days. Everybody's signing the supermaxes.
So Chris, and this is with the new CBA, right? So, like, great example, when you look at Caleb Martin was leaving his team either way, but he got less money because teams couldn't afford him because of the new CBA rule. So now that's why Mitchell took his money, right? Because you can't. And great example, DeMar DeRozan, actually, he opted out and he couldn't get what he wanted, so he had to go to the Kings and sign a 3-year deal over there. But the new CBA is ruining the NBA free agency, like you said. Like, everybody's just signing that extension because they want to get paid. At the end of the day, they still have a family to feed and stuff like that. But going back to the Miami rebuild part, the problem that I have with Miami Heat right now, and this could be for everybody, is the Miami Heat said, you know what? Let's just go with Tyler, Jaime, Jovic, Khalil Ware, Bam, and just let's have fun. And let's just do that, right? The problem is they're still trying to be competitive, and then not really. Oh, let's bring back Haywood Highsmith, and let's just bring some veteran help in Alec Burks. That tells me that you're still trying to be competitive a little bit. They're like in the middle right now. That's pissing me off. Like we've been saying, choose a damn direction. And so it's like we're trying to be competitive. Oh, we have hope. Oh, we're gonna get this star player. Damn right. No, we're not. The front office, we're not getting nobody. So it's like get. And I know they can't control the rumors and all this bull crap of all the star players and stuff like that. But as soon as you trade Jimmy, now we know a direction to go, right? So I know they don't want to trade Jimmy, but look at all the players that we lost and got nothing out of it. It's really just simple as that. I mean, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Caleb. It would have been Haywood Highsmith. It really would have, but thank God he's back. We're losing all these players for nothing. And I kind of look at the Chicago Bulls front office and say, look who they lost and look who they gained. Like, they traded Andre Drummond Caruso and DeRozan and got Chris Duarte and some picks. That's what I'm looking at the Miami Heat front office. Like, we ain't get shit for none of these players. We got them paid. That's all we got. We got Max Strus paid. We got Gabe paid, even though he doesn't know how to play basketball no more. But we ain't getting no returns. We need draft capital. That's how you trade for star players. We get no draft capital in return at all. It's just this front office. I don't know what the hell they're doing. So
yeah, you need cap space and draft picks, and we have neither. We have one, I think, tradable pick in 2030, and we have no cap space right now. So, like, again, to Chris's point, we're in the middle. We're Malcolm in the middle. We're stuck in the middle. It's like one of the worst places to be in right now because, again, do we trade Jimmy Butler midseason to a desperate team? Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, still a top, 3 to 6 player in the NBA. Like, he has a window maybe of a few years left. Like, there was speculation that they could be interested in a Jimmy Butler. Like, I still think his value could be 2 first-round picks and a player. Like, it depends. Do you want to match the salaries? Like, or do you want to get like a Wiggins in return with some cap space, perhaps plus 2 picks? That's feasible. I don't know. I could go that direction because, again, we're in the middle. Like, there's no one on this trade market that could help elevate this team right now to win a championship next year. Like, that person is signed an extension. That was Donovan Mitchell was the perfect piece. That might have been Dame last year also. I don't know if Lauri Markkanen moves the needle. I don't know if Zach LaVine moves the needle. I don't know if Ingram moves the needle. And quite frankly, we don't even have enough to really get those guys anyway. So I don't know, Trent. I think I am leaning on towards let's do that soft rebuild to what you just said. Keep Tyler because he's not a bad player. He just doesn't fit with Jimmy. And his contract doesn't look as horrendous. Same as Duncan's. It looks bad until the new TV deal comes in and you see these contracts where Quickly is getting $175 million, right? So it doesn't look as bad. I'm open to that. Trading Jimmy mid-season, depending on his body language, depending on if he's like playing well or not, getting some picks, getting some space, and then letting Bam, Tyler, Jovic, Hawkes Ware, and that team develop. And it's a soft rebuild because we'll probably still be like a 9 or 10 seed in the East. We're not going to be 14 or 15 because we have Bam, who's an all-star, and Tyler Hero, who's capable. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Bartel, on that? Would you trade Jimmy?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I was gonna ask Chris. That Chris, do you think that Jimmy Butler has another run in him? So let's say that we go all in and and they don't trade him, which I don't think they're gonna do. Do you think that Jimmy Butler has enough in him, for maybe one more miracle run?
I just think the East has gotten too good. Jimmy can't. I mean, this isn't the 2024 Celtics were light years better than the 2023 Celtics, and the Milwaukee Bucks now with Dame. Look, Doc Rivers to me isn't a great head coach. I don't think the Bucks are going to win a championship with Dame and Giannis. I just don't see it. They'll have a better chance than Miami as currently constructed, but I don't see it. Philly's interesting to me, right? Because again, a lot like Miami, they're going to rely on health. How many times was Paul George not available when the Clippers needed him alongside Kawhi? How often has Embiid not been available? Maxi's the guy that scares me the most on Philly. I mean, that's the guy that I think is going to be the X factor for them. I mean, obviously PG and Joel, they're going to get theirs, but I don't see it, man. I don't. And did I see it coming 2 years ago when we were 3 minutes away from being a lottery team and losing to the Bulls? No. So it's like that's that little belief that we have in our heads because of 2020, because of 2023. And you still have Eric Spoelstra. A lot of people seem to forget that when we get into the offseason that Miami does arguably have the best head coach in the NBA. But the offense has to get better. I mean, even Pat called out Spo in his end of season presser. So If you're not going to fix the personnel, maybe we're going to see lineup changes. Like everybody's puzzling in Nico at the 4. Are we going to see Nico at the 1? Are we going to see Haywood at the 4? Like there's so many question marks right now. And to everybody's point, it made no sense. Maybe it's going to make sense by the time the ball gets tipped off on opening night, but it makes no sense to bring back Thomas Bryant and have this surplus of 5s on this team, and you really only have one true point guard. And a lot of people don't even feel like Terry is a true point guard. And we've been talking about it. Like, is Drew Smith or Zion Pullen or Isaiah Stevens or whoever the realistic backup? I would have loved Tyus Jones. But with the move made today, I mean, you're out of the running for Jones. Dennis Smith Jr. has been thrown around. Sadiq Bey's been thrown around. It just would have been nice.
Walker.
Yeah, Lonnie Walker.
I
think Lonnie's got some great scoring capabilities off the bench. So, look, there's still a little bit in my. Everybody seems to have moved on and been like, okay, we're running it back. Picking up Burks, we now have a surplus of centers and we have a surplus of shooting guards. It still feels to me like there could be a trade in the works. There's just no rumors about it. Like who's going to take on a Duncan contract? Who's going to take on a Tyler contract? I think Pat's stubborn. I think Pat sees. Remember they said Tyler, they'd only trade him for a top 75 NBA player of all time?
Not anymore.
That's ludicrous. That's crazy. Let's just give I just want a first round pick and some cap relief for the guy at this point, So, it's a tough direction, but I don't think Jimmy has another magical playoff run in him with the help he has right now. I just don't see it.
Hey, Chris, right? So, talking about Spo real quick. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but I've been calling Spo out since the regular season. I think that he did a terrible job this year. And personally, I think he did a terrible job. And I get it. Injuries don't help. I get that. But when Spo comes out and says, well, Spo has his mindset. It's just like, well, whoever's there, like, we're going to find a way to win. And I like that. That's cool. But when you're throwing terrible rotations out there, when you're playing Patty Mills more over than DeLon Wright, which makes no sense to me. When you're not, you give Bam. The reason why Bam doesn't score as much as he should is because he's doing everything on the court, and then he gets no rest because you want to put K Love at the 5. It's not a realistic. Even though Thomas Bryant struggles in the regular season, at least give some Thomas Bryant minutes. This year, the reason why I think they brought Thomas Bryant back is because I don't like playing young guys. It took him forever to play Jovic, so I'm having a feeling that Kel'el Ware. He might play too much. Why? What was the point of bringing Thomas Bryant back then? Because you can have Bam and Ware can be the backup until he develops and potentially be a starter. So that's my concern about this team. It's not just the front office. You got to look at Spo. You got to look at Jimmy load managing throughout the season. You got to look at Tyler not remaining healthy, and it's just a bunch of stuff that we have to deal with. But it is what it is, man.
Spo wasn't that bad though. Come on, rotations, sure, but we were the 4th most injured team last year. Not to use that as an excuse. 36 different starting lineups. Come on, that's part of it. That's part of it. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't spectacular. He was fine. He wasn't bad. I mean, come on. If you look at all the other injured teams, they're the worst teams in the NBA. Like, we stayed afloat. We were 1 game from the 63 from the 4th seed, with Tyler missing half the season, Jimmy missing 20, all that. So
he was bad. But that's what happens when you're leveled to the top. You get criticized for more because we know you could be great.
Fair enough. I'm just saying there is also some reasons why. But yeah, or you sorry, Chris, you can jump in.
I was just gonna say I think that's a fair point. I mean, there was a different type of swag that Spo was coaching with during that 23 run, right? Like, I would watch his post game pressers, even as that 3-0 lead on Boston slipped up. There was this weird type of confidence he had, right? And I think that spread throughout the team in a good way. Last year, I don't know if it was what he went through off the floor, getting paid a lot, maybe overthinking stuff. I'm with you. It wasn't Spo's best season. He had me fooled there for a minute after taking game 2 in Boston, right? I thought, okay, the mad scientist is back. He's gonna push these Celtics a little bit. And then, Miami collapsed. They looked absolutely awful those last 3 games. Like, they didn't even belong there. And then I remembered why I didn't even want them to, once Jimmy went down, I remembered why I didn't even want them to beat the Bulls. So it's Spo's got to do a better job. Everybody's got to do a better job. But again, what's the ceiling with this group? I mean, they've given us championship expectations. We're all about winning here, right? We're all about getting deep playoff runs and all that. Look, you're not going to win a title every year, but I mean, you got to give us something. Last time they got bounced in the first round, they turned around. They got PJ Tucker. They got Kyle Lowry. They were the 1 seed. They were one shot away from going back to the finals and maybe beating that Golden State team in 22. They different type of urgency this offseason. I am curious though, like you guys. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but then again, nobody really has heat sources. Laurie or Brandon Ingram not moving the needle in your guys' opinion, like to be a top 3 team in the East?
No.
Laurie, I just obviously don't think we have the assets. We don't have the draft capital that the Utah Jazz want. And then Brandon Ingram, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that if he had a change of scenery, I think that would be huge for him because I know a lot of people have complained about the New Orleans organization and playing there. I don't know. I just don't think with his injury history and then him wanting like a max contract and he's not really putting out that like he doesn't give you that max production, and he wants like a $200+ million contract. So would I mind him in terms of the Bam Adebayo timeline? No, he'd be okay. But once again, I'm not paying him at that contract, and then his injury history is a concern.
You're being too nice, Martel. Brandon Ingram fucking sucks. Let's be honest. That dude sucks. If he gets on my team, I'm going to have a fucking widget. I'm going to be tight. You seen what he did in the postseason? You seen what he did in the postseason without Zion? That dude was pathetic against OKC. Do not put him on my team at all, okay? If we start trading picks for this dude to trade. Yo, I don't like Tyler, Chris. You probably don't. I hate Tyler. Bro, I'd rather have Tyler, and I hate Tyler, bro. Brandon Ingram is awful. But for lawyer marketing, I think it can work. I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe, I'm desperate. Bro, having a 7-footer that can score 24 points, shooting 40% from the three-point line, and he's only getting better, and he's still fairly young. Bro, what? I'm willing to do that. We talked about it before you joined. People are like, I don't want Laurie. We got Jovic. Jovic will never be Laurie marketing in his day in his life. That dude would never average 20-plus points a game shooting 40% from the three-point line. Never. Jovic would never even be an all-star. Amir, shut up. Amir, stop it. Jovic would never be an all-star player in his life. Are you crazy?
How do you that? Okay, well, I don't agree with people saying that Jovic don't trade Jovic for Lowry because that makes no sense. Of course, take Lowry now, but why are you dogging on Jovic? He's only 20 years old. Like, who knows?
I don't care if he's 20. He's not Laurie Mark.
I'm just saying how you're saying never. We don't know yet. He's played 60 games in the NBA. He's 20
Never.
years old. But I agree with you. When people say why trade for marketing when we have Jovic, that's stupid because he's 26, established, scored 24 points, is an all-star. I agree with that. But to answer your part of your question, Chris, I don't think we would be a top 3 seed. I think we'd be better with Lowry. Like, that'd be interesting. I think we could potentially be a contender, but it'd still be very difficult to get out of the East, let alone beat a team in the West, because the West obviously is improving vastly. But maybe like 4 or 5 seed if we got a Markkanen. Like, if all things work out well. I don't know. Trent, what do you think? If we got Markkanen, what would our seeding look like in your opinion?
Well,
I don't think it will be top 3.
Well, what happened to this playoff Jimmy? What happened to playoff Jimmy? I mean, y'all hyped him up all year, right? Y'all talked about he needs to get paid and stuff like that. So if we have Jimmy and marketing, we should win, right? We got the best coach in the league, right?
You said playoff Jimmy, not regular season.
Hey, we got to get. If we get marketing, we're going to the playoffs. We're going to be a top 6 seed, right? So if you're talking, we hype playoff Jimmy up so much, he's the best player in the league in the playoffs, right? And we got the best coach. We should win, correct? So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. The fit will be kind of interesting because then Bam. I don't know who. I don't know. It'll be interesting because I don't even want to get my hopes up because it's not happening. But
it seems like Pat is just so reluctant nowadays to give up young talent. Like it feels like he's made Nico. It feels like he's made Jaime untouchable. I don't think Tyler's untouchable. I just think his value's never been lower.
No one wants him. Yeah. I don't know if Nico and Jaime are untouchable to Pat if like the real whale. I mean, in his presser, he said there's like 3 guys. He didn't mention names, like if they became available.
Well, we know KD's one of them for whatever reason. Even KD at this juncture of his career.
Oh God, no.
Seems to me, I don't agree with it, but I think Pat still sees KD as a whale. I think he's had a long-term infatuation for Durant, and I don't know. Barry keeps saying, oh, well, Miami now hopes in the next 6 months that the star's going to ask out. Where? Like, where? I don't see where a star is going to think that Miami's a better situation for him. Like, there's no Dame this time around. And even when we did get the star, I mean that's the biggest fumble of it all. And like, blame who you want, blame Cronin, blame Pat, blame Dame's agent, blame Dame a little bit. Like, but that was, to me, that was it. That was the chance. Like, free agency is not what it used to be. LeBron and Chris Bosh aren't coming around that corner in free agency. Like, that was it. Like, I don't, even if D Mitch would have asked out, does Pat bid what's necessary to get him? And do the Cavs give Miami a level playing field with other teams, So, I mean, it really might be a tough 2 to 3 years until the end of Bam's extension, and which is on the same timeline as Mitchell. So they could be free agents at the same time. But what's to say they don't want to team up elsewhere? I don't know. It seems like Bam loves Miami and would love to be a Heat lifer, but with the way this franchise handled, D Wade, and with the way they're potentially about to handle Jimmy, I just don't know.
I don't know either, man. It's a tough spot to be in. It's not fun. I'm gonna root for this team. I'm still gonna watch them. I'm still gonna cover them. We'll see what happens. Anything can happen. We'll see. There's crazier things that have happened. Maybe Giannis will say, "Hey, Miami only mid-season." Force his way to the Miami Heat. Who knows? Maybe that will happen, but I doubt it. But anyway, Chris, thanks so much for hopping on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Before we hop off, do you want to just let the audience know where they can find your work?
Yeah. On X, I'm at Chris Sylvester _, and then IG, Instagram, C Sylvester PBP, as in play-by-play. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I've been wanting to talk some Heat hoops. I'm in California a lot like you, so that there's not a lot of us out here, but the internet's a great place to do a little chatter. And I wake up every morning when Heat Twitter's been going at it for 2 or 3 hours, and it's like reading the newspaper in the morning, just kind of scrolling through and checking everything out.
Thanks so much again. Martel, any closing words on your end?
Make sure you guys like, share, comment, subscribe.
Thanks again, guys.